The skyline of Manhattan glittered like wet glass as limousines slid up to the NBC studio doors. Inside, the corridors of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon buzzed with the kind of nervous excitement reserved for royalty. A legend was in the building. Old Pacino, the man whose voice could turn a whisper into thunder, was walking those halls again. Stagehands paused without realizing it. An intern whispered, "He's smaller than I thought." A camera operator answered softly, "They all are until the lights hit." In the green room, Pacino sat motionless while a makeup artist dabbed powder on the lines time hadn't dared erase. He didn't need coaching. His presence was rehearsal enough. The ease had turned his stillness into theater. On stage, Jimmy Fallon warmed up the crowd. "We've got a huge show tonight," he grinned, bouncing in his chair. "Is a legend, an icon, a guy who taught us that shouting can be art." Laughter. Cheers. The band struck a jazz riff that made the rafters tremble. Behind the curtain, Pacino inhaled deeply. He had faced cameras for half a century, but live television had its own menace, the illusion of control. Tonight, something about the energy felt off, too bright, too eager, like lightning looking for conductor. "Please welcome," Jimmy sang. "The one, the only, old Pacino." The audience rose as one. Flashbulbs flared. Pacino stepped into the spotlight, black suit catching every shimmer, expression half smile, half warning. He waved once, slow and deliberate, then shook Fallon's hand. The younger man practically vibrated with excitement. "Oh, you look fantastic," Jimmy said, motioning him to sit. Pacino's gravelly chuckle rolled out. "Fantastic might be stretching it, but I'll take it." The crowd laughed. Easy rhythm. For now, they started with nostalgia. Stories about The Godfather, tales from Serpico. Fallon leaned in, eyes wide, playing the perfect fan. Pacino obliged, his voice pacing each memory like a director revisiting his own reel. But even in those warm minutes, a strange undertow ran through the laughter. Fallon's jokes kept stepping on the ends of Pacino's sentences. Every time the legend began to build a thought, the host slid in with a punchline. It was harmless comedy, until it wasn't. Pacino noticed first. A flicker crossed his eyes, the same expression he wore in 100 scenes just before the explosion. He let the smile hold. The audience never saw it. The band never missed a beat. But the storm clock started ticking. Fallon's next question landed light. "You ever forget lines these days? Oh, or does the director forget you forget?" Laughter, applause, more laughter. Pacino smiled faintly. "Sometimes the lines forget me." Jimmy jumped on it. "Yeah, but you just make up new ones anyway, right? You old Pacino. You could read a menu and win an Oscar." The audience roared. Pacino laughed too. A dry, one-note sound. "Maybe, but the trick is knowing when not to talk." For half a heartbeat, Fallon looked puzzled. Then he recovered with a grin. "Well, don't stop tonight. We paid good money for you." It was a joke, but the laughter stumbled. Pacino's brow lowered. Something in the air shifted, imperceptible, like the moment before thunder when animals go silent. The narrator in every viewer's head could already sense it. Two tempos colliding. One built from reverence, the other from ratings. Fallon pressed on. "I gotta ask, do you ever watch your old movies and think, man, I was crazy back then?" Pacino leaned back, eyes half closed. "I think, man, I was alive back then." It landed heavier than expected. A few people clapped. Most didn't know if they should. Fallon laughed awkwardly. "You're still alive? Oh, trust me, we checked." The band chuckled. The audience followed. Pacino didn't. "You checked," he repeated quietly, almost to himself. "That's funny." He looked out past the cameras into the rows of faces. "You all come here for laughs. That's good. Laughter's honest. But sometimes honesty ain't funny." Fallon blinked. "We'll try to keep it funny tonight," he said with forced brightness. Pacino nodded slowly. "You do that." The audience laughed again, this time because they didn't know what else to do. For the next few minutes, they danced in that uneasy rhythm, Fallon juggling jokes, Pacino answering with parables. The crowd still clapped, but it wasn't laughter anymore. It was applause for tension. Then Fallon, searching for traction, flipped to a card near the bottom of his stack. "Okay, serious one," he said, smirking to cushion it. "There's a story that you were difficult on your last set. You disappear for hours, refuse direction, tell the crew you were becoming the silence. What was that about?" The audience chuckled. The phrasing sounded funny until it didn't. Pacino's eyes opened fully now, the weight of decades behind them. "Who told you that?" he asked softly. "Oh, you know," Fallon laughed. "A little bird, couple of production folks. Hollywood loves a myth." "It ain't a myth if someone sells it," Pacino said. Fallon leaned forward, still smiling, sensing the friction but mistaking it for entertainment. "So, was it true?" "Maybe," Pacino said. "Or maybe some people don't understand quiet." The audience stirred. Fallon felt control slipping through his fingers. He doubled down, voice high with forced energy. "Hey, you're the master of noise, man. That's your thing. Big, loud, unforgettable." Pacino turned to him slowly. "Maybe too many people forget that whispering takes more guts." The laughter died entirely. Even the band stopped mid-note. Fallon lifted his mug, hiding behind a sip. "Well," he said, "you've still got that fire." Pacino smiled faintly. "Fire don't go out. It just chooses what it burns." Fallon blinked again, lost between awe and discomfort. The teleprompter's next joke scrolled by unread. The audience sat frozen. Nobody breathed loudly enough to break it. Pacino leaned back. "You ever think, Jimmy, that maybe the thing people love about you is the same thing they'll use to eat you alive?" Fallon laughed automatically, uncertain. "I hope not. That would make my job terrifying." Pacino tilted his head. "It is." The crowd murmured. A cameraman zoomed in, catching the faint tremor of Fallon's smile. Moment. Two careers met on the same stage, one carved in marble, the other sculpted in light, and neither wanted to blink first. The break signal flashed from the floor manager, but Fallon ignored it, compelled by something he didn't understand. "You're intense, man," he said lightly. "This is why people call you the greatest." Pacino looked at him for a long second. "Greatest what?" Fallon hesitated. "Actor." Pacino shook his head slowly. "No, that ain't mine to say." He leaned forward. "You know what's funny, Jimmy? Everybody wants to make a show until the truth starts performing back." The bandleader finally cut in with a quick riff, cueing applause. Fallon forced a laugh, thanked the audience, and threw to commercial. But everyone in the studio knew the break wasn't long enough to cool what was coming next. The commercial break lasted 90 seconds. On paper, that was enough time for laughter to reset, for makeup to blot the shine, for producers to whisper that everything was fine. But tension doesn't follow schedules. It lingers, thin, invisible, waiting for air to move. The host sat perfectly still, eyes flicking to cue cards he no longer needed. "We're fine," he murmured to the floor manager. She nodded because that's what people do when a storm is forming and no one wants to be the one to name it. The red light blinked. "Back on A." "Welcome back," he said brightly. "We're here with one of the greatest actors of all time, the man who taught generations how to feel through a screen." Applause. Controlled, obedient. The legend smiled faintly. "That's nice of you, kid." The host laughed. "Too loud, too fast. Kid, I'll take that. I'm 49. But sure, I'll be your kid." The crowd chuckled. Relief flickered. For a second, it seemed the rhythm had returned. But then the host reached for a different card, the one his producer had underlined in red ink, the one that wasn't supposed to be asked until the end. He read it anyway. "So, there's been talk lately about you being difficult. Directors saying you argue, that you, forget lines or refuse to come out of your trailer until things are just so. You've earned the right, of course, but..." He smiled, leaning in. "Is it true? Have you gone full diva?" Laughter scattered through the crowd like dropped coins, small, metallic, uncomfortable. The legend's smile stayed, but something behind it went dark. He didn't answer immediately. He studied the host instead, head tilted slightly, eyes narrowing like a camera lens. Finally, he said softly, "You ever call Michelangelo a diva for taking too long with the paint?" The crowd murmured, unsure whether it was safe to laugh. The host did anyway, awkward and thin. "No, but I wasn't paying Michelangelo's salary." The actor said, voice low. "So it's about money." The audience's laughter died on the way out. The host tried to pivot. No, I just mean, you've got this reputation for passion. People love that about you. I just wondered if it ever crosses into, trouble." The legend supplied. The host nodded, smiling again. "Yeah, trouble." The actor looked down at his hands. "Let me tell you something. When you spend 50 years speaking truth in front of cameras, trouble's just another word for honesty people ain't ready for." Applause broke out, hesitant, respectful, then swelling into cheers. The host clapped along, but his grin had gone tight around the edges. He went off script again. "Fair enough. But some folks say you've lost your spark lately, that you're chasing old ghosts instead of new art." The studio air vanished. The legend blinked once, slowly. "That's so." "Hey, they're critics," the host said quickly. "They criticize. That's what they do." The actor leaned forward. "And what do you do, Jimmy?" "I host a show," he said lightly, "where people have fun. And if they don't, then I try harder." The legend smiled without warmth. "Maybe that's your mistake." The audience stayed silent, caught between admiration and dread. It wasn't anger that filled the space. It was something colder, disappointment wearing a tuxedo. "Listen," the host said, palms up. "I didn't mean disrespect. We all love you, hey." The actor's eyes softened but didn't forgive. "Love's cheap, pal. Respect costs something, dud." Someone in the back row clapped once. It echoed like a slap. The host exhaled, searching for a joke that could glue the show back together. Okay, tough crowd tonight. Maybe we'll get you to smile before you leave." The actor chuckled once. "Careful. I might." The band laughed out of habit. The red light glowed hotter. He continued quietly, "You know, there's a funny thing about questions. Sometimes they ain't questions, they are traps with manners." The host straightened. "That wasn't my intention." "Intention's what a bullet says before it hits the wall," the legend said. The crowd gasped softly. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." The host laughed again, too high-pitched. "You still talk like you're in a movie, man." The actor nodded slowly. "Maybe that's 'cause every place with cameras is a movie. The trick's remembering who's right in the script." And suddenly the entire studio understood. The guest had taken the pen. The host shuffled his cards, but the questions were useless now, paper shields. "Well, you've still got that intensity," he said, half to himself. The legend smiled faintly. "Intensity's just honesty that stayed too long." Applause. Uneasy, polite, terrified applause. "Hey," the host said quickly, "I'm just doing my job." "Yeah," the actor murmured. "Me too." The silence that followed was unbearable. The director in the control room gestured wildly to cut, but the floor manager froze. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. The host tried one last pivot. "Let's talk legacy. When people look back 50 years from now, what do you want them to remember about you?" The legend leaned forward, voice calm, surgical. "That I remembered myself." The crowd applauded again, relief disguised as admiration. The host smiled, grateful for the lifeline. "Beautiful. See, that's the quote right there." "Yeah." The actor tilted his head. "Or maybe the quote's this." He paused. "Don't mistake comfort for connection." The laughter died again. Even the band's pianist looked down at the keys, pretending to read sheet music that wasn't there. The host's grin flickered. "You really don't pull punches, huh?" "No point," the actor said. "They land better unwrapped." And that's when it happened, the moment that would define the night. The host, desperate to pull the room back into his orbit, leaned forward and said the line that broke the evening. "Maybe you're just tired. Oh, happens to all of us. Time catches up, you know. Hard to stay relevant forever." You could hear the breath leave the room. Even the cameras seemed to hum louder, as if protesting the sound of disrespect. The legend didn't blink. didn't smile, didn't move for a full 5 seconds. Then he said, "You think relevance is the same as noise?" The host stammered, "No, I just meant." "You meant," the actor cut in softly, "that quiet people scare you." "No, because quiet don't sell commercials." The audience's silence turned electric. This was no longer talk show banter. It was an autopsy. The host tried again, voice thinning. "Come on, we love hearing you talk. You're a master storyteller." The legend nodded. "Story's over." He reached down, unclipped his microphone, and placed it gently on the red sofa. The gesture was polite, almost tender. That made it wise. Wait, are you serious?" the host asked, rising halfway from his chair. The actor stood slowly. "You asked for honesty. That's all I got left." "Oh, please," the host said quickly, hands raised. "We're just talking, hey." "That's what they said before every bad deal I ever made," the actor replied. He turned toward the audience. "You've been kind," he said quietly. "Don't lose that. It's rarer than applause." The room stayed frozen. Even the bandleader forgot to cue the theme. The host's voice cracked slightly. "You can't just walk off. We're live." "I've been live for 80 years, the legend said without turning back. "This ain't new." He took 2 steps toward the curtain. The audience finally reacted. Applause, gasps, half-shouted, "We love you." A desperate attempt to rewrite the moment while it was still happening. He paused at the edge of the light, looked back once. "You want a headline?" he said. "Write this, 'Respect ain't a souvenir.'" Then he walked out. The door closed softly. The silence it left behind was louder than any band cue could have been. The host stood there, still smiling because that's what training demands. His voice trembled just enough to betray the truth. "Ladies and gentlemen, all pack. The legend, everybody." The applause sign blinked. The audience obeyed, and the band finally struck a hesitant chord that sounded like confusion set to music. Behind the curtain, the actor kept walking. He didn't look back. Backstage swallowed him whole. The moment the curtain fell back into place, sound changed, laughter replaced by the flat buzz of cables and hurried breathing. Stagehands parted instinctively, giving the legend a clear path as if proximity might burn. He didn't speak. He simply moved, slow but unstoppable, coat brushing against the lighting rigs, microphone still warm in his palm. A production assistant jogged beside him. "Mr. Pacino, we can cut that part. We can." He stopped. "Don't cut it. You can't cut truth." The kid froze. He didn't know if that was philosophy or command. Back on stage, the host tried to breathe life into the ashes. He joked about technical issues, promised the audience an exclusive performance after the break. But every camera angle felt empty without the legend's silhouette. The crowd clapped out of pity. In the control room, producers whispered like surgeons over a failing heartbeat. "Do we spin it?" one asked. "We salvage it," said another. "Get the social team ready." The director wiped sweat from his neck. "Too late. We're trending already." Screens flickered in the hallway, clips uploading in real time. The host's forced grin, the quiet walk-off, the single line that would echo for days, "Respect ain't a souvenir." By the time the legend reached the green room, his driver was waiting, phone vibrating nonstop. A publicist's name blinked again and again. He ignored it. "Take me home," he said simply. The driver nodded. "Yes, sir." Inside the studio, chaos thickened. Assistants ran messages between producers and NBC Legal. The social feed pulsed like a fever. Within minutes, Pacino Walks Off had climbed past the night's guest band and every planned hashtag. Newsrooms smelled blood. Blog headlines sprouted. "Live meltdown at Tonight Show. Host crosses line with legend." The footage hit YouTube before the closing credits aired. In the car, city lights smeared across the window like brushstrokes. The legend finally spoke. "They'll call it anger," he murmured. It was mercy. The driver said nothing. Chaffee's learned confession silence. Back in the studio, Fallon's dressing room filled with handlers. One read from her phone. "Social split 50-50. Some think you disrespected him. Others say he overreacted." He rubbed his temples. "So everybody's mad." Great. Another producer paste. We can book him again. Apology segment. 2 chairs. Clear the air. He's not coming back, Fallon said quietly. He stared at his reflection in the mirror. Smile lines hardened into trenches. Was I wrong? No one answered. Across the continent, news anchors replayed the clip in slow motion, analyzing posture and tone like courtroom evidence. Commentators argued about ageism, ego, the changing language of fame. On talk radio, callers took sides. He's a legend. You treat him with respect. Come on, he's been rude for years. Every opinion claimed righteousness. None carried understanding. By midnight, late-night producers from rival networks sent subtle texts. You okay? Each one secretly grateful it hadn't been them. Meanwhile, the legend's apartment remained dark except for the television flickering without sound. He watched the looped footage once, twice, then turned the screen off. He poured a drink he didn't touch. For a man who had lived half his life in front of cameras, the quiet felt heavier than any script. His phone buzzed again, an old director friend. The message read, "They'll crucify you for 2 days, canonize you by Friday. Don't blink." He smiled faintly. I won't. The next morning, sunlight found the NBC building looking like a crime scene. Reporters camped outside, microphones pointed toward glass doors. Headlines scrolled across every screen in Times Square. Inside, the network PR team drafted their statement. The Tonight Show and our guests share mutual respect. Sometimes passion creates powerful television. We thank him for his honesty and look forward to celebrating his incredible career. It sounded sterile, the corporate equivalent of shock silence. By noon, the legend's representatives released theirs. After 5 decades in this business, he believes conversation should honor craft, not ridicule it. The press framed it as war. Fallon recorded an off-air segment that afternoon, apology wrapped in humor. Hey, sometimes I push too hard. I was just trying to have fun with a hero of mine. I guess legends need more space, and I need better timing. The clip was uploaded instantly. It got millions of views and nearly as many comments calling it insensate. That night, the Tonight Show studio felt colder. Every laugh line carried the ghost of the moment before it. Producers reminded the host to read the room, a phrase that now hung like prophecy. The legend, meanwhile, walked through Central Park under a wool cap, unnoticed. A small boy feeding pigeons looked up and said, "You look like that guy from the movies." He smiled. "I used to be." The boy grinned, returning to his crumbs. For the first time all day, the legend laughed, quietly, freely. Back at the network, analysts stared at engagement charts climbing like fever graphs. Best ratings in 6 months, someone said. Congratulations, muttered another. We broke civility for clicks. By the weekend, think pieces flooded every platform. Vanity Lens called it the night authenticity one. Others labeled it a masterclass in ego. The footage became meme, morality play, marketing gold. But underneath the noise, one truth pulsed steady. Everyone had seen the cost of respect measured live, in front of millions. Sunday morning, the host sent a handwritten note, not an email, to the legend's apartment. You didn't deserve the way that question came out. I'll learn from it. The letter was never returned, but the gesture made headlines anyway when a studio assistant leaked its existence. By Monday, both men retreated to the same refuge, work. The host filmed another episode with a pop star. The legend met a new director to discuss a small independent project. Neither mentioned the other again. But across the world, strangers kept watching that clip. The old lion's stillness, the young showman's nervous laughter. The moment's silence spoke louder than applause. Every replay added new meaning. Some saw arrogance. Others saw truth. A few just saw history repeating. How television turns real moments into mythology within minutes. And deep inside NBC's archive vault, the raw footage remained uncut, labeled simply with a date and a single word scrawled in marker: respect.